Mr. President, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I've spoken out about the unethical editing of the Kamala Harris interview by 60 Minutes.
Terrible.
But you go a step further and you say CBS should lose its license. Why?
Sure. Well, I've never seen anything like it. She gave a horrible, incompetent answer on a news program. It's not an entertainment program. They call it news. They say it's a #1 news program. And so she gives an answer that shows that she's dumb or incompetent or something wrong with her. It's so bad that the people at CBS say, we're not going to do a little editing, like the word "the," make it there, something. You understand? They take the whole ridiculous answer out, and it was a long answer, and replace it with a much shorter answer that she did having to do with a totally different subject, which also didn't make sense. But it wasn't as incompetent.
They
don't do that with me.
But the head of the FCC says we would never yank a license because a politician didn't like his or her coverage.
Well, this isn't a politician. This is nothing. Wait a minute. She gave an answer. They took the answer.
I said I've been critical of it.
Listen to this. They took, just for your audience, you know about it.
All right.
They took the answer out in its entirety, and they put a completely different answer in that makes her look like she's normal, okay, which is about the best you're going to do. And I said, I think it's the worst thing she's done. Now, what we're doing is we're going to subpoena their records because we want to see how much else did she do. And I can tell you, I've done 60 Minutes many times, and they do with me different. They take sentences out. In other words, I'm more honored by that. But I'll have a paragraph that is a great paragraph, and they'll make it less good by just taking things out. But that's different. That you can sort of say they want to make the program shorter. You know, they always say, well, we want to shorten it up. They take a great paragraph and, they make it okay. But with her, I never knew anyone would do this. They took the whole thing out and they put a whole new thing in. I've never seen anything. I think it's the biggest scandal I've ever seen for a broadcaster. In 60 Minutes, no, I think 60 Minutes, I think it should be taken off the air, frankly.
You posted this.
And by the way, 60 Minutes, they also, when I had an argument with Leslie Stahl, now very famous, about the laptop, she said it was Russia, but I never got an apology.
You posted the following. Kamala should be investigated and forced off the campaign, and Joe Biden allowed to take back his rightful place. Investigated for what?
Well, it depends what you're talking about. Are you talking about 60 Minutes?
No, these are your words, so I'm asking you.
Let me tell you. They should look into it. Investigate. I'm investigated all the time. I'm the most investigated human being in history. They should investigate her. Look, on 60 Minutes, they say it was her campaign that forced them to do that. So certainly that should be investigated.
It sounds like you missed Joe Biden.
No, I think Joe Biden was... I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. And I think he might have done better than her. I mean, if you take a look at the polls now, I mean, I can't tell you exactly, but it looks like I'm winning and winning pretty easily, but we'll see. You have to get out the vote. But no, I think what they did to Joe Biden was a threat to democracy, to use their term. He had 14 million votes. They went into his office. He had a debate with me. He didn't do well. His poll numbers went down. And that's okay. That can happen. And they went in and they said, you're not running anymore. We're taking it away from you. They took away the presidency of the United States. I don't even like using the word coup because a lot of people don't exactly understand what a coup is. They took away...
But nobody ran against the vice president.
Excuse me. They took away the presidency and they handed it to... Well, nobody ran because the whole establishment did it. It did it as a whole. The Democrat Party did. When you saw that, you've never seen anything like that. He won the... I mean, she was in the primary. She was one of like 22 people. There were a lot of people.
Last time, yeah.
She was the first one to
drop out.
Get out because she did so badly. All of a sudden, she's running. So I'm not saying from my standpoint. I'm saying from his standpoint. He's a very angry man. In fact, I think he probably likes me more than he likes her. But he's a very angry man right now.
Let me ask you about Joe Scarborough, because on Bill Maher's show, he said his people, meaning your people, have said they're going to arrest my producers.
Oh, nobody said that. Look, Joe's a sick puppy. I know him well. I used him beautifully. I dropped him because I thought he was very unethical, actually. But I dropped him. But I used him for 2016 And I do it from my apartment. I wouldn't even have to go in. I'd do phone calls, and I did them almost sometimes on a daily basis.
Why do you say nothing?
And then every once in a while, because I watch him and what he says about me. What he says is so bad. And you have to understand. Now, I was friendly with him and with Mika, but at a certain point, and it doesn't matter why, but I didn't want to do it anymore with them. And they're not too happy about it. No, but he says a lot of things like that I think they're unethical, but who knows?
I want to drill down on this question of retribution because against your political opponents, because you've had opportunities to walk that back. And my question is this: are you prepared to say now that you will not use law enforcement to punish or prosecute your political opponents?
Excuse me. That's what they're using on me.
Okay, so your stance is that they started it.
Before you start this.
Yeah, I got it.
Howie, that's what they're using on me. I've got DAs. I've got everybody. They look at me. There's never been anything like this. The biggest case was the one down in Florida, and I beat it 100%. I won the case because we had number one, a brilliant judge, and a judge that moved rather rapidly, and I won the case. By the way, Biden had almost the same case, but he didn't have the Presidential Records Act because he wasn't the president, just to finish. And he got off on the basis that he's incompetent, essentially that he's incompetent. And it was a strange ruling because they said, number one, he's incompetent, so he's not going to be, but the prosecutor actually said he's guilty, but he's incompetent. But they didn't say he couldn't be president anymore. That was his bigger problem for not being president. How can you not represent yourself in court because you're incompetent, but you're allowed to represent the United States of America? The whole thing is crazy. But no, they have weaponized government against me.
But are you willing to use the same tactics?
No, I don't want to do that because that's a bad thing for the country. I don't want to do that. I don't know who said. I haven't said that I would, but they have done it. I've got attorney generals, DAs. They're all. Right. You take a look in Atlanta.
You're heavily investigated.
Yeah. They went and met with them. It's all coming out of the Justice Department. They have done something never done in this country before. Now, it's been done in a lot of other countries, third world countries, banana republics, but never done. So when you ask that question, you really have to start by saying, well, they've done it to you. No, I'm not looking to do it to them at all, because that is they have set a very bad precedent, however.
You talk about the enemy within. There's enemies, America's enemies outside. The enemy within is a pretty ominous phrase if you're talking about other Americans.
I think it's accurate. I think it's accurate.
Who are you talking about?
And,
the enemy?
I heard that. They say, the enemy. On the outside, you have Russia, you have China, you have a lot of different groups. If you have a smart president, they can be easily handled. I handled them. We had no wars. We had no wars. The only thing I had was ISIS, and I defeated them in record time. They were gone. But I started no wars. The outside people, the so-called enemies, if they're enemies, and they might not be enemies, if you have a smart president, they can be handled. But when you have people investigating my campaign, when you have people, they spied on my campaign, How you understand that. That's been proven. But they spy on your campaign. The Russia hoax was all made up, and now it's acknowledged that it was made up. All of these different things. You have the 51 different agents saying it was from Russia, and now they all say it wasn't from Russia. Okay, so we were lying. Many other things, many. I could go. You just don't have enough time. But what they've done is so terrible. Who's ever heard of anything like this? Adam Shifty Schiff. He's a crooked guy. He's a crooked politician, 100%. And he's going to be a senator now. Can you believe it?
But again, he's a political opponent of yours. He's not an enemy.
No, he's a. Well, of course, he's an enemy. He's an enemy. He wanted to put my son in jail, and my son didn't even know what he was talking about. He wanted to put my son in jail on a scam that he made up called Russia. He, Hillary Clinton, and a group of people made up a scam, and they came out of a room, and they said, Donald Trump Jr. will be going to jail over this. And my son called me. He said, what did I do? He knew nothing about Russia. It had nothing to do with him. Think of how bad you have to be when you say you're going to put any son, not just, a president's son, but any son, you're going to put somebody in jail on a scam that you knew was made up by you. That's an enemy from within. That is a threat to democracy. These are bad people. We have a lot of bad people. But when you look at Shifty Schiff and some of the others, they are, to me, the enemy from within. I think Nancy Pelosi is an enemy from within. She lied. She was supposed to protect the Capitol. She said that to her daughter just recently. It was found on the tape from her daughter, who's a documentary maker. She said, this is my responsibility. She admitted it. But I offered her 10,000 National Guard troop, anything she wanted. No, but she didn't take them. She should have taken them. And you wouldn't have had January 6th as we know it. By the way, if she took 500 people, you wouldn't have had it, let alone 10,000.
Sure. So you actually give me a segue into my next question. I do have to say for the record that the spying accusation is in dispute. I know you don't believe that.
What accusation?
The spying accusation. But
I don't think it's in dispute. Obama and Biden spied on my campaign. It was a long time ago. We're talking about the previous campaign. Maybe they're doing this campaign too. But so far it doesn't seem to be working.
January 6th, the other day you called it a day of love. That sparked a lot of reaction, given that many police officers were attacked and there were mobs shouting, hang Mike Pence. Can you understand why many Americans would view it as a dark and tragic day in our history?
The crowd I spoke before, which you rarely see, I have pictures of it, they're massive, but nobody wants to put them in. It was the biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I've spoken to the biggest crowds. I've never seen that many people. Mm-hmm. A small group of them, and peacefully and patriotically, which nobody uses. My words were peacefully and patriotically. A small group went down to the Capitol, but they came because they thought it was a rigged election. This was a protest against a rigged election, and I can't say exactly the number, but I've had massive crowds, and this was by far the biggest crowd. I've spoken to the crowd at the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial on the 4th of July. This crowd was bigger. And I tell you, there was a beauty to it and there was a love to it that I've never seen before.
But Mr. President,
a small group of people went down to the Capitol, and then a lot of strange things happened, including police ushering them into the Capitol. I mean, you know that. And a lot of strange things. So I'm not referring to that. I'm saying that when I saw that tremendous crowd, the largest group I've ever spoken to, in front of these beautiful monuments, I thought it was actually a beautiful thing. It was a protest.
But
now,
Mr. President,
if other groups protest,
let me jump in, please.
I know, but when other groups protest, whatever they may be protesting, nobody says anything. They have a right to protest.
But there was a lot of violence. 1,200 people pled guilty or were convicted. Almost 600 were charged with assaulting police officers or rioting. Now, you're somebody who says you're on the side of law enforcement, but you seem not to have much sympathy for the police on that day.
No, there's nobody closer to the police than I am. Nobody. But you take a look at Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon, people were killed. There was nobody killed here. Nobody had guns here either.
There were people with guns.
Well, really? I'd like to know. You mean in the rally, or they had some guns at their home?
No,
someplace?
At the rally.
Oh, really? Well, I have not heard that at all. No, I don't think so. They had no guns. They had no guns.
So
that was a peaceful.
So you're comfortable with a day of love?
No,
you wouldn't modify that.
I'm talking about when I made that speech. I've never seen anything like it. They came down to protest a rigged election. Very simple. They protested an election, and you know what? I think you have the right to protest in this country.
Well,
if anybody else protests, nobody does anything about it. Take a look at Portland.
Right, but you're going back to another situation. I'm talking about that day.
I'm talking about another situation. People got killed. They destroyed the city. They've broken all the storefronts. They tried to tear down the federal courthouse. Take a look at Seattle. They took over Seattle. They took it over. They took over.
Nobody's condoning that either.
Of course. Well, no, but nothing happened to the people that did it. They're not in jail. There's nobody in jail. Take a look at Minneapolis, the city of this wacky governor, this wacky guy that runs it, that's now trying to be vice president. That was death, and it was fire. Nobody's ever seen anything. The whole city looked like it was burning down. Nothing happened to those people. The only thing that happened to are these people. Take a look more recently. More recently, about 2 months ago, they had a really bad situation where they put graffiti all over the beautiful limestone lines. They can never be the same because limestone's a soft stone and the stuff will go inside the paint. But they put spray paint on top of lions. It'll be there in 100 years. You're going to see it. No, but they had vicious rights. They were attacking the cops. Nothing happened to them. Only to these people. And I just want fairness, that's all.
General Jim Mattis, who was your Secretary of Defense, has now joined General Mark Milley, who was your Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, in saying, this is their quote, you are the most dangerous person ever. I assume you'd like to respond.
Well, they were not my cup of tea. They were woke. You know that. They were not great generals, in my opinion. I was asking them advice. I didn't agree with the advice. Look at the advice that Milley gave to Biden on Afghanistan. Move the soldiers out first. No, you have to move the soldiers out last. I don't respect them as soldiers. I never did. I fired them both. I let them resign, but I fired them both. I got them out in the form of Mattis. The other one I didn't. I didn't listen to his advice very much because I didn't respect, and some others. And I did respect others. My generals, where I beat, as you know, I defeated ISIS. It was supposed to take years, and I got it done very quickly. Had great generals that I dealt with. I don't consider those people great generals. I think Mattis was a wash and not very good. And I think that Milley was terrible. I watched his performances in Congress, and I thought he was terrible. And he told me the same thing about Afghanistan. I said, we want to get out. I was prepared to get out. I was going to keep Bagram, but I would have been out before Biden. Milley said we should leave all of the military equipment behind. I said, why would you do that? Would you leave a $150 million jet fighter? Yes, sir. It's cheaper, sir. And I started to realize, and to me, he wasn't my cup of tea. I can give you, I just had, I was very honored by it. 300 and some odd people signed a major letter saying that I was a great commander-in-chief, and they were all top intelligence people and military people.
So therefore you're dismissing Mattis and Milley? Well,
I just didn't respect them. I didn't think they were good. And Mattis I fired. I said, give me a letter, but fired. And Milley I would have fired, but the time was, pretty short, so I just left him. But I thought Milley was terrible. I thought what he did for Biden, and he blames Biden on top of everything else. He blames Biden for the catastrophe. The most embarrassing day in the history of our country, I believe, or moment in time, was Afghanistan. The way they did that, taking the soldiers out first. We would have been out of there so good that, we had conditions. We had a very strong condition. You take the soldiers out last, but Milley should have been fired, immediately should have been fired. Everybody having to do with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the withdrawal was fine, but the way they did it was so bad. Should have been fired. No, I didn't respect Milley, and I didn't respect Mattis. I respect a lot of people. But you mentioned a couple of hundred people. These were people, a lot of them I fired. I thought they were no good. What you didn't say is that a letter came in just recently. I had nothing to do with it. Over 300 people that work in government said I was the best president they've ever had. Let's go to another thing, the border. Tom Homan said I'm the greatest president in his lifetime, that in his opinion I'm the greatest president ever. The people that ran the border, I had a very safe border. I had a great border. I had the best border that we've ever had in this country in recorded history.
And you hold Kamala Harris partially responsible for the situation?
No, I hold her fully responsible. I gave them the best border we've ever had. Now we have the worst border in history of any country, not just our country. There's never been a border. And now it's learned through, by the way, just so you know, I just got Border Patrol, gave me their endorsement.
I know.
And it's a complete and total, and they said she's terrible. They didn't just give me the endorsement. They said I'm the best they've ever seen, and they said she's the worst that we've ever seen. They were so bad, I don't even know how they do it. I mean, it was so bad what they said about her that anybody reading that endorsement would say you can't vote for her. So when you tell me about a couple of stiffs, a few stiff people, people that I fired, largely, you know why I fired? Because they were no good. Biden never fires anybody. So when you don't fire people, they don't write books about you. When you fire people, they do. They won't write books about him anyway because really nobody cares about him. It's one of those things.
Your famous line about Springfield, Ohio, and I take your point, that 15 to 20,000 legal Haitian immigrants settling in that area causes a lot of friction. But when you said, and you know it's gone viral there, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, you say you're just reporting what had been said. But why not say now, well, look, that turned out not to be true.
I don't know if
Here's
it's
my
not true.
verdict.
I don't know if it's true or not true. I read
Eating
something.
the pets, you don't know if it's true or not true?
No.
It's been debunked by local officials.
What about the geese? What about the geese? What happened there? They're all missing. I don't know.
There was one guy with two geese.
Howie, I have no idea. I said something. The big problem is that you can't put 30,000 people into a 50,000 person town or city and expect this city to even survive or do well. What they've done to Springfield, Ohio is very, very unfair. And, I mean, there are a lot of stories. There are a lot of other stories that I've heard that are horrible stories. I haven't said it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But that's a story that was reported, and I said that. Why don't you go after the newspaper that wrote it? Don't blame me.
Well, I think it's been debunked by local officials.
I don't think it's been debunked at all. I think nobody talks about it except you.
You've gone after individual news organizations like the Wall Street Journal, but you're also crusading against fact checkers. And in fact, you've turned down a number of interviews if there was going to be real-time fact-checking. What's your issue there?
Well, I haven't turned down your interview, and you and I have no deal. When we came up here, right. I didn't say you can't talk about anything. I'll talk about anything. I don't care.
But do fact checkers have credibility in this age?
There are no fact checkers anymore.
Who are the people who say they're fact checkers?
What I said is, and I reported this, and I said it very loudly because largely there's fake news out there. It's corrupt news. It's beyond fake news. In the old days, I've been doing this for a long time. I'd have a story in the New York Times, let's say, and when the writer was finished, I'd get a call from what's called a fact checker. This is what I said. And they'd say, sir, is it right that you did this? Is it right that you did that? Is it right that you have this number of things, whatever it may be? In other words, they'd check the story. I didn't appreciate it at the time. Now I do. It was so professional. They'd check the writer, and it's called a fact checker.
Well, there's still.
I said, I haven't had a fact checker call me in 20 years. It's true. I used to have them call me all the time. Routinely, a fact checker at the New York Times or whoever was doing a story.
Usually it's magazines, but go ahead.
They don't fact check anymore. Today, they don't even call. They write stories. The New York Times is totally, in my opinion, corrupt. They write stories about me knowingly false, knowing anything to try and win it for a radical left crazy person that will destroy our country. And I call it the failing New York Times. It does terribly, but they write whatever they want to write.
Do you have an example of something that you thought?
Well, I think you'll see it because I'm probably going to sue them at some point, very soon. So you'll see it. You'll have a lot of pages worth of examples, but they will write just and the thing is, the public doesn't see it. They'll write the opposite of what you tell them. I'll tell them this, and then it's not printed that way. Look. We have a great example, and a lot of them lately, and we don't have the Times. The Times I could give you a lot. I'll give you a lot. You'll see a lot in about a week. But the 60 Minutes, go back to it. Do you think it's ethical for them to take her whole answer out and give her a brand new answer that makes her look okay as opposed to incompetent?
No, I think it's highly unethical. The question is
but don't you think
losing
that
a license is sufficient, is an adequate or drastic punishment?
How many times have they done it? They've done it to me, too, in a different way. See, my answers are good. The difference is they will take things out of my answers. They'll shorten them up, and they're really changing them. But I don't consider that the same kind of a violation. I've never heard of I think it's the biggest scandal in broadcast history. I think what they did... You have a candidate from a major party. You have two candidates. You have the candidate from a major party who's incompetent. She's incompetent. You know it, and so do I. And hopefully the public will find out about it before they vote. And she'll ruin this country. And she's a Marxist. She's going to ruin this country. But you have a candidate from...
Why do you keep saying she's a Marxist?
Because her father's a Marxist. And, okay...
Even if he was, and that's in...
No, father's a Marxist
professor who has...
No, he's a Marxist professor of economics.
Therefore,
and by the way, whatever happened to him? How come nobody interviews him?
Therefore, his daughter is a Marxist?
No, her views are, but now she's changed him. She's become MAGA. She became MAGA. I'm going to send her a hat because she's used. Now her views are much different. But you go back 2 years ago. Go back to when she was defeated by Biden. Okay?
4 years ago, yeah.
And she was radical left. Transgender operations for anybody that wanted them. She was beyond, I would say she was probably beyond Marxist, if you want to know the truth. She is considered, let's put it differently, she's rated by a lot of professionals to be by far the most liberal senator and much more liberal than Bernie Sanders or Pocahontas, okay? When you're more liberal than Bernie Sanders, I mean, and by a lot, this country cannot have that. This country has to get wise to it. They have to find out. So when you ask me that question, you can't talk about her now. You have to talk about her a couple of years ago. There'll be no drilling. There'll be no fracking. There'll be no anything. She was, so she was, liberal's not the word, but she was far left of what you would call liberal.
Mr. President, thank you very much for sitting down with us here at Trump Tower.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.